Being home alone can leave you feeling carefree or liberated, or perhaps vulnerable and threatened. If something scary or unexplained has happened to you, submit it to submitscarystories@gmail.com to possibly be featured in an upcoming episode of Seriously Strange. Shilas moved into a new home when she was only 9 years old, and it didn't take very long for her to know that the house was anything but normal. In fact, she knew the house was uncomfortably different from the day she moved in. Throughout the years of her youth, she would experience a number of phenomena and an overall feeling of being watched while living in the house.
As soon as we moved into the house when I was 9 years old, I was noticing a lot of weird stuff happening, like unexplainable noises. There was this closet in my bedroom that the doors would always open every night between 1 and 3 a.m. and there's nothing ever in there. There's always a tapping or scratching coming from the inside every night that kept me awake most nights.
The worst of this dark essence lingered in the basement, where Shilas would feel the most overwhelmed and threatened. When walking on the stairs, she would often feel like she had something following right behind her and would at times feel an unseen force pulling or pushing her.
The basement was terrifying to me. It felt like there was something always watching me down there, and it didn't want me anywhere near there.
Even her cats wanted nothing to do with it and would stare from the basement door down into the darkness, growling and hissing. But it turned out that whatever lingered in that house did, in fact, mean her harm. By the time that Shilas turned 20 years old, her mother and sister had both moved out, leaving her alone in the house full time. But the house would prove that she wasn't truly as alone as she had hoped. Considering the laundry was done down in the basement, Shilas did everything she could to resist going down there.
It became so bad that I wouldn't do my laundry at home. I wouldn't go into the basement at all. I started sleepwalking and waking up on the basement stairs, which made that a whole lot worse. I absolutely hated it. It was I have nightmares, still.
But whatever it was in the basement seemed to find itself comfortable in Shilas's bedroom, and would often wait for her to get into bed at night before it would tamper with her life. This would happen in forms of violent attacks, which would sometimes pin Shilas down and leave her helpless to the torment. And as suddenly as the force would arrive, it would dissipate, leaving Shilas to believe and hope that it was all just some kind of twisted nightmare. But what Shilas couldn't explain were the marks she would end up with after the attacks, scratches and bruises, many of which she took photographs of to document the terrors.
Once I started getting attacked, I knew it was real when I was getting bruises, bleeding claw marks, welted, handprints all over my body from where it would hit me or squeeze me or attack me. I've actually got scars across my ribs from where it clawed me the worst.
Whatever lived with Shilas wasn't only a mean spirit, but perhaps something much darker. Shilas, one morning after waking, while lying on her stomach and looking out her bedroom window into the snowy morning light, suddenly had her head forced down into her pillow, as if whatever was doing it was trying to suffocate her. The only sounds she could hear, aside from her own struggling, was a very familiar series of words being whispered, the Lord's Prayer. Shilas kept a number of crucifixes around her home, along with a few Bibles, and these things began to go missing after this attack. This is when the haunting was suspected to be something much stronger, much darker than a conventional haunting. Things have been hurled at Shilas, from cups to light bulbs being shot out of their sockets.
I've had water bottles, like just cups, any small things around the house thrown at me. I've had light bulbs fly out of the light sockets with just the glass bulb. When all this started happening, I was really hoping it was just my imagination or all in my head, because I was so terrified and I didn't want to believe it was real. And I didn't know what to do. I kept moving away as many times as possible.
Shilas has experienced a number of other phenomena, such as being locked outside in the cold when no one else was home, and a lot more. She continues to deal with these attacks to this day. It's good to know the history of your home, but perhaps sometimes it's best if you don't. Ris wasn't aware of her home's history. In fact, knowing the history was a little impractical, considering that her family was a military family, which required frequent moves to many different places, never staying put in one place too long. Ris has been a skeptic for as long as she can remember, never having believed in the paranormal. She believed that everything unexplained was just lacking a logical explanation. But one event that took place in a nice Colorado Springs home changed things. The house had 3 bedrooms, and with 2 siblings, Ris, 8 years old at the time, shared a bedroom with her brother, while their younger sister, who was only just a baby, had the smallest bedroom to herself.
Moving into this house went as typically as it could have. It didn't seem off. It was in a nice neighborhood. It looked nice. My mom really liked it, and I guess I was okay with it. I mean, as okay as I could have been moving once again.
Ris's little sister used to typically sleep well through the night, and for the first week in the new home, things seemed quite ordinary. But suddenly, Ris's little sister would start having trouble sleeping. Severe trouble. Late into the night, every single night, she would stand in her crib and begin crying hysterically, pointing at her closet. Despite her parents' best efforts to calm her down, she was inconsolable.
When my little sister started screaming and crying every night, it was really weird and kind of scary. We didn't really know what was going on with her, and we kind of just assumed she was having night terrors, even though she'd never had any problems like that before.
After some time, they made the decision to move her into their bedroom in hopes of calming her down, and it worked. Once she was out of the small bedroom, the little baby girl slept soundly again. Spotting an opportunity for privacy, Ris quickly moved herself into the vacant bedroom, not thinking anything of the bouts of crying from her baby sister. It wasn't long until Ris was plagued by nightmares when she tried to sleep. She'd sometimes snap awake covered in a cold sweat and a feeling of overwhelming dread weighing her down.
These nightmares weren't like anything I've ever had before or since. The biggest difference was that when I'm having a normal nightmare, I can tell that I'm dreaming. And in these nightmares, I couldn't. The one I can recall the most vividly was me laying in bed in the exact same position I'd fallen asleep in. And to the right of me was a shadowy figure in the shape of a little girl. And it was completely blacked out, like so black it stood out in the darkness of my room. And it put its chilly, cold hand over my mouth and my nose and was suffocating me. And it felt so real that I honestly thought I was going to die. And when I woke up and there was nothing there and I could breathe again, it honestly terrified me. And all of the nightmares in that room that I had from that moment on weren't normal nightmares. They always featured this shadowy figure, whether it was in the shape of a little girl or a little boy or a tall man, terrorizing me in different ways. and I'd never experienced anything like that before.
The phenomena continued throughout their time in the home, but Ris dealt with her unusual living arrangements, knowing that it was only a matter of time before her family was going to move again. But about a year passed, and a day came that Ris would never forget, a day that she was left home alone. Ris's father had returned from deployment and the whole family had gone out together, but Ris decided that she wanted to stay behind and just spend some time with the house to herself reading. That's when she heard a peculiar noise. The stairs were creaking as if someone was walking up them slowly and with purpose, heavy footfalls pressuring the old wood. Ris had heard a lot of different noises through the home since they moved there, but she only knew the stairs to make those noises when someone was going up or down them. Ris thought her family must have returned, so when the footsteps stopped once they had reached the top of the stairs, she didn't think much of it and went back to reading. That's when her doorknob started to violently shake, as if someone was trying to force their way inside. The shaking accompanied banging onto the door, causing it to rock inside its frame. Ris's heart leapt into her throat. Her door had a lock, but she realized that she hadn't locked it. All Ris could do was just stare at the door in shock. All she could think was that someone broke into her house and for some reason, they couldn't get inside her bedroom. But it wasn't someone breaking in, it was something that had always been there inside the house. The violent shaking stopped and Ris could hear the turning of a doorknob. But as she stared at her door, she realized that it wasn't her bedroom door's knob that was turning. The turning doorknob came from her closet door. The hinges to the closet door creaked and slowly it cracked open. Ris, terrified by this, sprung out of bed and charged out her bedroom door, no longer caring about what could have been waiting outside in the hallway. But thankfully and eerily, nothing was there. She immediately called her mother, crying inconsolably, much like her little sister had when she stayed in that very bedroom. After the event, Ris's mother decided to look into the history of the home, and what she found out chilled the entire family. A man who had lived there in the past with his 2 children had, one night, for reasons unknown, murdered his own children in their bedrooms. After committing his horrendous act, he hanged himself inside the closet of the house's smallest bedroom, the bedroom Ris and her little sister had used.
I was too young to do research, but my mom did, because we all just wanted to know what was going on and why, and she did look into it quite heavily. And when she told me what had taken place in that room, the young children that had been murdered by their own father before he hung himself in the closet, the first thing I felt was utter sadness for those children. They didn't deserve to have their life taken that way. And then I was just scared. I was so terrified. I didn't want to be in that room anymore. I didn't want to sleep in that room anymore. I didn't want to think about the events that had taken place in that house, and I just couldn't believe that it was real, and I couldn't believe that someone would do that.
Ris eventually moved out of the dark and haunting home with a murderous past, and she's thankful that she never has to go back. What should have been a small vacation turned into a horrific memory that will never be forgotten. Zeiten was 13 years old at the time when his family left Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a short camping trip in Ohio, a few hours away. Zeiten's parents allowed him to stay behind alone, considering that they weren't going to be gone long. Once his family left, the good times were ready to begin, or so he thought.
It wasn't a normal occurrence for my family to leave me home alone, so that day when they decided to go camping, I had the house to myself. I was very much planning on spending it playing video games on the family computer, and watching movies I wasn't supposed to.
Zeiten eventually had to use the bathroom, so he paused his movie and made his way upstairs. The only bathroom to use was on the second floor at the far end of the hallway, past the bedrooms, which all had their lights off due to the fact that no one else was home. But after using the bathroom, Zeiten walked back down the hallway and noticed that his older brother's bedroom light was suddenly on.
After I had left the restroom, I had noticed the light in my brother's room almost immediately. It was normal for me to forget doing things as a kid because I was always all over the place, so I honestly just shrugged it off at first as me being forgetful. It wasn't until I started going down the stairs and hearing the TV played that I really panicked because I did remember pausing it. So when I slowly crept through to the hallway and I saw my brother sitting on the couch, my body was just met with instant dread. I had goosebumps. All the hair on my body stood straight up. He was just sitting there staring. He got in the car. He wasn't supposed to be there.
His older brother left for the camping trip hours away. He knew it. He saw him leave, but there he seemed to be, sitting and watching the movie he had paused before going to the bathroom. Overwhelmed by terror, Zeiten fled from the house and went to a neighbor.
After all that had happened, I had gone straight to a family friend's house and spent the rest of the weekend there. I didn't exactly tell them what happened, I just said that I'd watched a scary movie and I spooked myself, which was the farthest thing from the truth. I still to this day don't know how to explain things, and I am 100% sure what I had saw and witnessed was a skinwalker.
Photos confirmed that Zeiten's brother was in fact with the family hours away and couldn't have possibly returned home. Whatever Zeiten saw that night is a mystery, but one thing that's for sure is that it wasn't who it appeared to be. That's all for now. Remember, you may not believe it, but anything is possible in a world so seriously strange. Happy Halloween. A special thanks to Audible for sponsoring this episode of Seriously Strange Into the Dark. Audible is the unmatched provider of audiobooks that you can listen to on multiple devices, such as iPhone, Android, your laptop, Amazon Echo, and more. And if you go to audible.com/Rob or just text ROB to 500-500, you can get your first 30 days free with Audible. They have practically limitless audiobooks with genres ranging from science to self-improvement to thrillers and so much more. With Audible, you can now experience an incredible book while doing just about anything, whether you're getting things done around the house, driving to work, lying in bed trying to fall asleep even though you know you're not going to get any sleep because the world just keeps crashing in on you and the lambs just keep on screaming and you just wish you could silence them, or baking cookies. You can listen anytime, anywhere. I've been listening to The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, and I love it because it hits you with a lot of hard truths about our minds and the world around us. Audible also has some awesome features like being able to control the speed of an audiobook, free exchanges, and if you cancel your membership, your books are still yours to keep. So don't wait. Head on down to the description below and hit the link for audible.com/Rob or text ROB to 500-500 to get started on your free 30 days and expand your mind with Audible. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe now because you won't want to miss what's next. And check out Audible and enjoy. And I'll see you next time.